Let me start by telling you this. There's a moment in life when everything flips upside down. For me, it happened at my uncle's ridiculously fancy dinner party in Beverly Hills. One minute, I was just another quiet face in the crowd. The next, I became the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. And then, well, let's just say I turned the tables in a way no one saw coming. If you're curious about how a shy graphic designer from Vermont silenced a room full of snobs and took down one of LA's biggest jerks, stick around. Hit that subscribe button, because this story is wild. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. So here's the deal. I'm Eleanor Carter, and if you had met me back then, you'd probably think I was boring. Like, painfully so. I mean, I wasn't exactly cut out for high society events. My wardrobe consisted mostly of thrift store finds, and my idea of fun was binge-watching design tutorials on YouTube while eating leftover pasta. But my Uncle Richard? Oh, he was the exact opposite, rich, loud, and always throwing these over-the-top parties at his mansion in Beverly Hills. The night of the infamous party started innocently enough. I showed up wearing the simple black dress I bought on sale and spent 3 hours trying to iron, clutching a bottle of wine I hoped wouldn't embarrass me too much. As soon as I walked in, though, I could feel the weight of judgment pressing down on me. You know that feeling when everyone's looking at you but pretending they're not? Yeah, that. It didn't help that Victor Langley, a guy who oozed arrogance like cologne, was standing near the door, eyeing me like I was some kind of charity case. Victor's the type of person who thrives on making others feel small. He's got this fake charm that fools people into thinking he's harmless, but trust me, he's anything but. That night, he made sure to remind me where I stood. Or rather, where he thought I stood. Spoiler alert. Way below him. But little did he know, I was about to give him a lesson he'd never forget. Okay, let me take you back for a second. See, growing up in Vermont wasn't easy. We weren't poor, but we definitely weren't rolling in cash either. My mom worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, and my dad, well, he left before I even hit middle school. Money was tight, but creativity, that was abundant. Mom used to sit with me for hours, helping me draw or paint, telling me stories about how art could change the world. She had the saying she'd repeat whenever I felt discouraged. Your art will speak louder than words. Back then, I didn't fully understand what she meant. But now I get it. Art isn't just about pretty pictures or clever designs, it's about connection. About telling your truth in a way that resonates with others. And that's exactly what I ended up doing that night at Richard's party. Anyway, fast forward to adulthood, and here I am, living in LA, working as a freelance graphic designer. I landed a few decent gigs, but nothing groundbreaking. Then Richard called, asking me to help with this big presentation he was putting together for his annual soiree. Being the good niece I am, I said yes. What I didn't realize was that agreeing to that favor would set off a chain reaction leading straight to the most chaotic, empowering night of my life. Walking into Richard's mansion felt surreal. Picture this. Crystal chandeliers hanging from ceilings so high they might as well touch the sky, marble floors gleaming under soft golden lights, and more hors d'oeuvres than I'd ever seen in my entire life. Seriously, there were tiny quiches shaped like flowers. Flowers! Who does that? I spotted Sophie Bennett almost immediately. She stood out, not because she was flashy, but because she seemed genuinely nice. Most of the other guests looked like they'd been plucked straight out of a magazine spread, all sharp smiles and sharper elbows. Sophie, on the other hand, had this warmth about her. She introduced herself as a journalist covering the event for some glossy lifestyle publication. We hit it off right away. She told me she'd heard whispers about Victor, that he was notorious for tearing people down publicly, and warned me to watch my back. At the time, I brushed it off. I figured, hey, how bad could he really be? Spoiler, very bad. Still, Sophie's warning stuck with me, planting a seed of unease that only grew stronger as the evening went on. Meanwhile, Richard pulled me aside to go over the technical setup for his video montage. He trusted me completely, which should have made me feel confident. Instead, it just added pressure. Because deep down, I knew something big was coming. I just didn't know it would involve public humiliation, secret recordings, and a blooper reel that nearly brought the house down. All right, buckle up, because this is where things start to get real. So there I was, standing near the projector screen, trying to look like I belonged in that glittering sea of privilege. Richard had just finished giving his opening remarks, a typical speech about success, legacy, blah blah blah. And now it was time for the main event, the video montage. I double-checked the equipment one last time, making sure everything was ready to go. But before I could hit play, Victor stepped forward with that smug grin of his. "Oh, Eleanor," he drawled, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Are you sure you're the right person to handle something this important? I mean, no offense, but..." He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air like a bad smell. The room went quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. Or maybe that was just my heart shattering into a million pieces. My cheeks burned as I forced myself to smile politely and nod. "Don't worry," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It'll be fine." But inside, oh, I was fuming. Not just because of what he said, but because of the way he said it, with that condescending smirk, like I was some clueless kid playing dress-up. And the worst part, some of the guests actually laughed. Not a full-on guffaw, mind you, but those polite chuckles that sting even more because they're supposed to soften the blow. Yeah, thanks for nothing, Beverly Hills elite. Still, I refused to let him see me crack. Instead, I took a deep breath, pressed play on the projector, and prayed for the best. Spoiler alert, the best wasn't what happened next. So here's the thing about technology, it doesn't care about your feelings. 1 second, I'm thinking, okay, cool, the video's starting, crisis averted. And the next, I'm staring at footage of Richard slipping on a yacht deck while wearing a neon orange life vest. Like, full-on slapstick comedy material. The room erupted into gasps and nervous laughter. People glanced around, unsure whether they were allowed to find this funny. Meanwhile, Richard turned beet red, his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. Great. Just great. Now, here's the kicker. I hadn't planned any of this. Honest. The blooper reel wasn't part of the original montage. Someone, probably Richard's assistant, must have accidentally included it when sending me the files. At first, I panicked. My brain screamed, abort mission. Abort. But then I noticed something interesting. Despite the awkwardness, people seemed entertained. Relieved, even. It was like seeing their polished host trip over himself humanized him in a way nothing else could. Victor, however, did not share the sentiment. He seized the moment to drive the knife in deeper. "Well," he announced, turning to the crowd, "it seems we've uncovered the true highlight of Richard's career. Perhaps Eleanor should stick to designing flyers instead of handling multi-million-dollar presentations." Ouch! Burned again. This guy really knew how to twist the knife, didn't he? But you know what? Something inside me shifted in that moment. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was adrenaline. Whatever it was, it gave me an idea that would change everything. Let me tell you something about being publicly humiliated. It sucks. Big time. But sometimes, it can also work in your favor. After Victor's jab, all eyes were on me. Some sympathetic, most judgmental, but all curious. And curiosity, my friends, is a powerful tool. I decided to lean into it. Turning to the crowd, I offered an apologetic smile and said, "You're absolutely right, Victor. This wasn't supposed to happen. But since it has, why don't we embrace the unexpected?" I paused for dramatic effect, letting my words sink in. Then I added, "There's more to this video than meets the eye. If you'll allow me, I'd like to show you something special, a tribute to Richard's humanity, not just his accomplishments." The room buzzed with murmurs. Richard looked skeptical, Victor looked annoyed, and Sophie gave me a subtle thumbs up from across the room. I couldn't believe I was doing this either, but hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. As the video resumed, I held my breath, praying my impromptu plan wouldn't backfire. Because if it did, I'd officially gone from awkward guest to party ruiner. No pressure, right? Okay, confession time. I may have fibbed a little when I called the blooper reel a tribute to Richard's humanity. Sure, it showed a side of him people rarely saw, but it wasn't exactly intentional. What came next, though? That was pure strategy. After the laughter died down, I queued up the final segment, a carefully curated montage highlighting Richard's charitable work. Footage of him volunteering at food banks, mentoring young entrepreneurs, donating to underprivileged schools. Each clip was accompanied by heartfelt testimonials from people whose lives he'd touched. By the end of it, the mood in the room had completely shifted. Guests wiped away tears, clapping enthusiastically as Richard stood speechless. Even Victor looked uncomfortable, though he tried to hide it behind his usual smirk. When the screen went dark, I stepped forward, microphone in hand. Sometimes, I began, my voice trembling slightly, we forget that success isn't just about wealth or power. It's about impact, about leaving the world better than you found it. And tonight, I wanted to remind us all of that. The applause was deafening. For the first time that evening, I felt like I belonged, not because of what I was wearing or who I knew, but because I'd contributed something meaningful. But trust me, the night was far from over. Because as much as I'd won the crowd over, Victor wasn't about to let me walk away unscathed. Little did he know, I still had a few tricks up my sleeve. You ever have one of those moments where you're not sure if you've just saved the day or completely ruined it? That's exactly how I felt as the applause died down. Don't get me wrong, the positive reaction was a relief. But there was still this lingering tension in the air, like the calm before another storm. Richard, bless his heart, finally found his voice. "Eleanor," he said, his tone wavering between gratitude and confusion. Well, that was unexpected. But thank you. Truly." He gave me a nod, though I could tell he was processing everything that had just happened. Meanwhile, Victor stood off to the side, arms crossed, looking like someone had stolen his parking spot. And then came the kicker. Someone, probably one of Richard's business associates, shouted, "Speech! Speech!" Oh boy! I hadn't planned on saying anything beyond my little intro, but now all eyes were back on me. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the mic. "Honestly," I started, my voice shaky but determined, tonight wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, about seeing each other as human beings, flaws and all. I glanced at Victor as I said this, letting the words hang in the air like a challenge. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do our best, right? The crowd murmured their agreement, and for a moment, I thought I'd dodged yet another bullet. But Victor wasn't done with me, not by a long shot. Just when I thought things might settle down, Victor decided to stir the pot again. He cleared his throat loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "How touching," he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But let's not forget that Eleanor sabotaged Richard's presentation. Whether intentional or not, she put her own agenda above professionalism. And frankly, that's unacceptable. My stomach dropped. Here we go again. Before I could respond, though, Sophie stepped forward. Bless her soul, she was like my guardian angel that night. "Actually, Victor," she said, her tone calm but firm, "I think Eleanor's approach was brilliant. She reminded us that success isn't just about numbers or accolades, it's about impact. About making people feel something real. Isn't that what storytelling is all about?" The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Victor looked taken aback, clearly unprepared for anyone to call him out. But Sophie wasn't finished. "Besides," she added with a sly smile, "if we're talking about professionalism, maybe we should consider how your constant need to tear others down reflects on you." Oof. Burn. I couldn't help but grin as Victor shifted uncomfortably, his smug demeanor cracking under the weight of Sophie's words. For the first time that evening, I felt like I had an ally, a true friend who believed in me. With Sophie's support boosting my confidence, I decided it was time to take a stand. Sure, I'd already won over most of the guests, but Victor was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for his chance to pounce. I knew I couldn't let him walk away, thinking he'd gotten the upper hand. Turning back to the projector, I addressed the crowd once more. "There's one last thing I want to share," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "It's something I prepared earlier, a personal reflection on what tonight has meant to me." I clicked play, and up on the screen appeared a series of images from my childhood. Photos of my mom teaching me how to paint, sketches I'd made as a kid, even a few screenshots of design projects I'd worked on over the years. Each image was accompanied by text explaining how art had helped me navigate life's challenges, from growing up poor in Vermont to finding my footing in LA. As the slideshow played, I spoke softly into the microphone. Art has always been my voice when I didn't know how to speak. It's taught me resilience, creativity, and the power of vulnerability. Tonight, I wanted to use that voice to remind all of us, including myself, that we're stronger together than we are apart. By the time the final slide faded to black, the room was silent. Not the awkward kind of silence, but the kind that comes after something deeply moving. People wiped away tears, nodded in understanding, and clapped softly, as if they didn't want to break the spell. Victor, on the other hand, looked furious. His jaw twitched, his hands clenched into fists. I knew I'd struck a nerve, and I wasn't done yet. Victor's anger was palpable. He couldn't hide it anymore, not with everyone watching him squirm. Still, he tried to save face. Very poetic, Eleanor, he spat, his voice laced with venom. But let's not pretend this wasn't some elaborate scheme to make yourself look good at everyone else's expense. That's when I dropped the bomb. Oh, Victor, I said, feigning innocence. You're absolutely right. This was personal for both of us. With that, I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording I'd secretly made earlier that evening. Guess whose voice filled the room? Yep, Victor's. You see, I continued, addressing the crowd. Earlier tonight, Victor made some interesting comments about me. Comments I thought you might find enlightening. The audio clip played loud and clear, Victor mocking my outfit, questioning my qualifications, and calling me a charity case who didn't belong at the party. The room erupted into gasps and whispers as his cruelty was laid bare for everyone to hear. Victor turned pale, his confident facade crumbling instantly. This is outrageous, he stammered, pointing at me. She recorded me without my consent. And you insulted me publicly without a second thought. I shot back, my voice rising. Funny how that works, isn't it? For the first time in my life, I felt truly unstoppable. You ever seen someone's entire reputation crumble in real time? It's kind of surreal. 1 minute, Victor was standing there trying to play the victim, and the next, he was drowning in a sea of judgmental stares. The guests were buzzing like bees after their hive had been disturbed. Some whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Did he really say that?" Or, "Wow, I always knew he was a jerk, but this is something else." Others just shook their heads, refusing to even look at him. Richard stepped forward, his face hard as stone. "Victor," he said, his voice low and deliberate, "I think it's best if you excuse yourself from my home." Victor sputtered, clearly unprepared for this level of fallout. "Richard, come on, you can't be serious. This is ridiculous." "Oh, I'm dead serious," Richard replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You've embarrassed me, disrespected my family, and alienated nearly everyone in this room. Consider our professional relationship terminated." Victor froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He glanced around desperately, searching for an ally but found none. Even the few people who might have sided with him earlier now avoided eye contact. And then, without another word, he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him so hard the chandelier rattled. Just like that, the man who'd spent the entire evening tearing people down was gone, and good riddance. Once Victor disappeared, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The tension evaporated, replaced by a sense of relief, and maybe even triumph. People started mingling again, congratulating each other on surviving what could only be described as a roller coaster of a night. But the biggest surprise came when Richard approached me, his expression softening into something resembling pride. "Eleanor," he began, placing a hand on my shoulder, "tonight showed me something I hadn't realized before. You're not just talented, you're fearless. And frankly, I couldn't be prouder to call you my niece." Tears welled up in my eyes, though I tried to blink them away. "Thanks, Uncle Richard," I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. "That means more than you know." It wasn't just Richard, though. Sophie walked over, her notebook tucked under her arm, and gave me a warm smile. "You handled that beautifully," she said. "I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to write about tonight. Your story deserves to be told." At first, I hesitated. The idea of being in the spotlight made me uneasy. But then I remembered my mom's words. Your art will speak louder than words. If sharing my experience could inspire others to stand up for themselves, how could I say no? "Go for it," I told Sophie, smiling back. "Just promise me one thing. Make sure it ends on a hopeful note." The days following the party felt surreal. Sophie's article hit the internet within a week, titled, "How One Designer Turned Humiliation into Empowerment." To my shock, it went viral. My inbox flooded with messages from strangers, thanking me for inspiring them to embrace their own voices. Even better, Richard offered me a permanent position overseeing his marketing campaigns. "You've proven you can handle pressure, creativity, and drama all at once," he joked during our meeting. Who better to represent Sterling Enterprises? While I appreciated the offer, I realized I wanted more than just a steady paycheck. That night at the party had ignited something inside me, a desire to use my skills to uplift others. So instead, I pitched Richard on a partnership. I'd help revamp his brand, but only if he agreed to sponsor a new initiative aimed at supporting underrepresented artists. To my delight, he loved the idea. "Consider it done," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Let's change the game together." Fast forward 6 months, and life looked completely different. I'd launched my own creative agency, Carter & Company, focusing on empowering marginalized voices through design and storytelling. Thanks to Sophie's article and Richard's support, business poured in faster than I could keep up with. But the most rewarding part? Seeing the impact we were making. We partnered with local schools to teach kids about digital art, collaborated with nonprofits to create awareness campaigns, and even hosted workshops for aspiring designers. Each project reminded me why I fell in love with art in the first place. It connects us, heals us, and gives us a platform to share our truths. As for Victor, rumor had it he'd left LA altogether, his reputation too tarnished to recover. Not that I cared. I wasn't losing sleep over someone who thrived on tearing others down. Instead, I focused on building bridges, creating opportunities, and proving that kindness and creativity can coexist in even the most unlikely places. Looking back, I never would have guessed that a single night could change everything. Sure, it was messy, chaotic, and downright terrifying at times, but it also taught me invaluable lessons about courage, resilience, and the power of authenticity. I thought about my mom a lot during those early days of building my agency. She always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. Her mantra, "Your art will speak louder than words," became the foundation of everything I did. Every design, every campaign, every speech I gave was infused with her spirit. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that night for anything. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it scared me. But it also pushed me to become the person I am today, someone who refuses to stay silent, who uses her voice to lift others up, and who knows deep down that she belongs exactly where she is. Let me tell you something about legacies. They're not built overnight. They're crafted through small, intentional actions that ripple outward, touching lives in ways you might never fully see. That's what I realized as my agency grew and the projects we worked on started gaining traction. One of our biggest successes came from a campaign we launched for a nonprofit called Voices Unheard. Their mission was simple yet profound: amplify the stories of people who've been marginalized or silenced by society. We created a series of short films featuring real-life testimonials, stories of struggle, resilience, and triumph. The response was overwhelming. People shared the videos across social media, tagging friends and family members who inspired them. Schools started using the films in classrooms to spark discussions about empathy and inclusion. Even celebrities chimed in, praising the project for its raw honesty and emotional depth. But here's the part that made my heart swell the most. Sophie reached out to let me know she'd nominated us for a prestigious humanitarian award. "You deserve recognition for the work you're doing," she said when I thanked her. "Besides, your mom would be so proud." She was right. Mom always dreamed of seeing me make a difference, and now I finally felt like I was living up to her hopes for me. Exactly 1 year after Richard's infamous party, I stood on a stage at an event I'd organized myself. Art Speaks, a celebration of diversity and innovation in creativity. The venue wasn't as flashy as Richard's mansion. It was a converted warehouse downtown, filled with string lights, graffiti murals, and mismatched furniture, but it radiated warmth and authenticity. As I looked out at the crowd, I couldn't help but smile. There were artists, activists, students, entrepreneurs, all united by a shared belief in the transformative power of art. Richard sat in the front row, clapping enthusiastically alongside Sophie, who'd flown in just for the occasion. I took a deep breath and stepped up to the mic. "A year ago," I began, my voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in my chest. I walked into a room feeling like I didn't belong. "Tonight, I stand before you knowing that belonging isn't about where you come from, it's about what you bring to the table. It's about connection, about courage, about using your voice to create change. The audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly enough to shake the rafters. For a moment, I just soaked it in, letting the energy wash over me. This was it, the culmination of everything I'd fought for, dreamed of and worked toward. After my speech, I wandered through the crowd, catching snippets of conversation as people mingled. One woman approached me, tears streaming down her face. "Your story saved me," she said, gripping my hand tightly. I was ready to give up on my art, but hearing how you turned pain into purpose reminded me why I started in the first place. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, in the best way possible. In that moment, I understood the true weight of what I'd accomplished. It wasn't about fame or accolades, it was about impact. About reminding people that they matter, that their voices are valid, and that art has the power to heal wounds we didn't even know we had. Later that evening, Richard pulled me aside. "Eleanor," he said, his eyes shining with pride, "you've done more than prove yourself. You've redefined what success means for all of us." Sitting alone later that night, I scrolled through photos from the event, marveling at how far I'd come. From that shy girl in Vermont sketching in her notebook to the confident woman standing on stage inspiring others, I barely recognized myself, but in the best way possible. I thought about Victor, too. Not because I missed him, trust me, I didn't, but because his cruelty had inadvertently pushed me to find my strength. Without his insults, I might never have discovered the fire inside me, the determination to fight back, to rise above, to use my art as armor and ammunition. And I realized something important. People like Victor will always exist. They'll try to tear you down, belittle your dreams, and make you question your worth. But here's the thing, they only win if you let them. If you refuse to stay silent, if you channel their negativity into fuel for your passions, they lose every time. The following week, I received an email from a young graphic designer named Mia. She'd attended Art Speaks and wanted advice on navigating the industry as a woman of color. Her message was heartfelt and vulnerable, and it reminded me so much of myself at her age. We met for coffee, and over lattes, I shared my story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I told her about the night at Richard's party, the lessons I'd learned, and the importance of staying true to herself no matter what. By the end of our conversation, she was smiling brighter than I'd seen anyone smile in a long time. "You're going to do amazing things," I told her as we parted ways. "Just remember, your voice matters. Use it boldly." Watching her walk away, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe this is what legacy really looks like, not fame or fortune, but the ability to inspire others to carry the torch forward. Before I wrap this up, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been part of this journey, whether directly or indirectly. To my mom, whose unwavering belief in me shaped everything I am today. To Richard, for giving me a chance when I needed it most. To Sophie, for being the ally I didn't know I needed. And to all of you listening, for taking the time to hear my story. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. Your voice matters. No matter where you come from, no matter what challenges you face, you have the power to create change. Speak boldly, create fearlessly, and never let anyone silence you. Because trust me, the world needs your light. You know, sometimes I wonder how far the ripples of our actions can spread. Like, if you throw a pebble into a pond, how many waves does it create before they fade away? For me, that night at Richard's party felt like tossing a boulder instead of a pebble, and the ripples are still spreading today. Take Mia, for example. Remember her? The young designer I met after Art Speaks. Well, she ended up interning with my agency, and let me tell you, she's incredible. Her talent is undeniable, but what sets her apart is her drive. She reminds me so much of myself at her age. Hungry, passionate, and determined to make a difference. But Mia isn't the only one who's been inspired. Since Sophie's article went viral, I've received hundreds of messages from people all over the world sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Some were artists struggling to find their footing. Others were professionals battling imposter syndrome. A few were survivors of bullying, just looking for proof that they weren't alone. Reading those messages humbled me in ways I can't put into words. It made me realize that this journey wasn't just about me, It was about all of us. Every act of courage, no matter how small, creates a ripple. And when enough ripples collide, they form a wave powerful enough to change the tide. Fast forward another 6 months, and guess what happened? I won the humanitarian award Sophie had nominated me for. Yeah, you heard that right. Me, the girl who once thought she didn't belong anywhere. Standing on that stage, holding that trophy, felt surreal. The ceremony was held at a grand theater in downtown LA, packed with activists, philanthropists, and changemakers from every corner of the globe. When they called my name, I nearly tripped walking up to the podium, classic Eleanor move. But once I got there, I took a deep breath and looked out at the sea of faces staring back at me. Wow, I started, my voice trembling slightly. I honestly wasn't expecting this. To be honest, I'm still learning how to navigate this whole being in the spotlight thing. The audience chuckled, easing some of the tension. I smiled, gaining confidence as I continued. This award doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone who's ever dared to use their voice, no matter how scary it felt. It belongs to the artists who create despite rejection, the dreamers who refuse to give up, and the fighters who stand tall even when the odds are against them. By the time I finished, the room erupted into applause. People stood, cheering and whistling, as tears streamed down my face. It wasn't the award itself that moved me. It was knowing that my story had resonated with so many others. That somehow, I'd become a symbol of hope for people who needed it most. So here we are, the end of a story. Or maybe not the end, exactly, but a pause. Life keeps moving, after all, and there's always more to come. These days, I spend my time running Carter & Company, mentoring young creatives like Mia, and speaking at events whenever I'm invited. My calendar is full, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Each day feels like a gift, a chance to keep growing, learning, and making an impact. Richard and I have grown closer than ever. He's become less about the glitz and glamour and more about giving back, thanks in part to the work we've done together. Sophie and I stay in touch regularly. She's working on a book now, chronicling stories of resilience from people around the world. And yes, Victor occasionally pops up in gossip columns, but frankly, I don't pay much attention anymore. As for me, I'm happy. Not the surface-level kind of happiness that comes from external validation, but the deep, soul-satisfying kind that comes from living authentically. From knowing I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do. If I could leave you with one final thought, it's this. Life is messy, unpredictable, and often unfair. But within that chaos lies opportunity. Opportunity to grow, to connect, to transform pain into purpose. So whatever challenges you're facing right now, remember this. You've got more strength than you realize. Keep going. Keep fighting. And above all, keep creating. Because your art will speak louder than words. Thank you for joining me on this wild ride. Until next time, take care. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.